Okay, welcome everybody. Um, I guess pretty much the first week of Ben Azmanim, I think. And we're still here, still learning and going and continuing. So thanks for the opportunity. Hopefully today I'll be able to contribute a bit more after last week's great experience. But let's try. I just want to share, I had a very pleasant surprise. I know that one of my oldest boy, my son, and a few of my boys actually like to listen to this year. They're supposed to be sleeping, but they find a way to listen from somewhere. And as a good father, I know, but I kind of don't know, but I do know. And one of my boys organized since Yom Tov, he's been organizing an Ovis Abonim project in the shul, Shem Remunim, every week. And and it's really growing very nicely. And every week there's um, a whole group of kids that come with their fathers, and we learn. And it's a very nice environment. It's outside. Everybody has their own table, social distancing. Everything's working out nicely. And every week he gets a donor, and they sponsor the Shabbos. They sponsor the project, and it looks very nice, and it works very well. This week was the last Shabbos of the term, and he really wanted to make it special and nice. There was a donor, and my son walked over to the donor, and he says, it's the last Shabbos of the term. Would you consider to give something extra? And these were the words that he used, something extra, in order to make it nicer for the parents. And the donor said, listen, I really want to donate and I enjoy it, but I'm not in a position to do extra. I'm donating only the basic. I understand that it's the last Shabbos of the term, but this is what I can do. And my son tells me that, without me knowing that he's listening to this year, but regarding this year, he tells me that for a split second, there was a disappointment because he did want to have extra for the boys and for the last Shabbos of the program. And then after a second, he tells himself, 1 second, it's not the donor who gives me the money. Hashem gives me the money. So I did my part, and it is what it is. So he said, literally, he tells me within a moment, he was okay. He said, I really want it, but the donor doesn't give me the money anyways, it comes from Hashem. As he's walking away, a different person who davens in the shul walks up to my son and says, I love this project you're doing, the Ovis Abonim project. I can't sponsor a whole week, but can I do a bit extra for this week? So if you have your donor, can I be the one adding the extra? And it was literally to see in real life exactly how it works and exactly how we were talking about. We don't always zoiche to see it exactly that way, but this time he was, and he was very grateful. I was very grateful that he shared it with me, but he literally was able to see it right away and see that it's actually Hashem who gives it. And really, he had exactly the amount he wanted for the bonus and exactly the amount he wanted for the project itself. Teenagers, not always easy for them to get the exact amount, but Baruch Hashem, it worked out. Anyways, going back to our topic, we ended off last week speaking about the different levels and concepts of ishtadlus that a person needs to have. So the one concept we ended with is that when we talk about parnasa, a person needs to do his ishtadlus, first parnasa, he needs to try. He needs to do what he's obligated to do in order to work, in order to make financial meet ends and work. But however, he doesn't have a clarity of what kind of parnasa he needs to do, right? Which we're going to see later on when we go into the shtadlus of mitzvahs, of good things to do. Then we have clarity. Hashem tells us do A, B, C. But when we look at parnasa, Hashem tells us work. What should we work? I don't know. Work. And every person gets a sense, and he's able to base on the strengths that Hashem gives him. So if Hashem gives him certain desires, certain interests, certain abilities, that's what he should invest in his parnasa. And it's very interesting that to end off that part, the Chovos Halevavos says that um, he takes the same concept into refuah, into medicine, into a person looking after himself and being healthy. So he said, just like in Parnasa, we said that we know that a person, Hashem decides when he'll come to the world, when he'll leave the world. Hashem decides also how much he'll have and what he needs. And he just needs to do his ishtadlus to make sure that financially he can manage. Okay? So he says the same thing with refuah. When it comes to a level of refuah, a person needs to do his hishtadlus, right? You need to go ask a doctor, you need to consult with a doctor, but really you have to rely only on Hashem. And this is a very interesting difference. I had a big discussion with the Talmud Chacham in Eretz Yisrael about it, and I showed him a nice source I found. Hashem, by the way, he asked the Shaila at Chovos Halevavos, and I said, "Oh, I really want to answer it," but I had no. It was a very deep question, and that day when I went to shul, one of my friends, Chavrusa, who learns with me, said, I found an amazing sefer on Chovos Halevavos. Look at it, and I just opened and looked into that Mefarshim, and one of the Mefarshim explains this concept. It was amazing at the time. I forgot about that even. It was quite a few months ago. And anyways, it was this we spoke about. Because Chovos Halevavos says like this. He says that when a person goes to the medicine, to doctors, he needs to be relying on Hashem only. And he says that's what happened to, he brings at the end of the paragraph, that's what happened to Asa, who trusted the doctors, and he left and he did not trust Hashem, and therefore he got worse. However, but it's interesting because he asked a very simple question. We know that a person is obligated to go to the doctors. What was the taina against him that he went to the doctors? He should go to the doctors. A person gets sick. You need to listen. You need to check. You need to know what to do. And here he comes and he says, although just like by Habitachon about finances, we need to do the right thing and Hashem will send. Also by refuah, we need to do the right thing and Hashem will send. However, there is a slight difference. Because if we look into a level of ishtadlus and eating, right? So without looking at where the finances come from, but a person we saw before, a person needs to eat in order to be healthy. And if a person doesn't eat, he can't say, well, I have bitachon in Hashem that I'll be fine, because Hashem created that if you eat, you're satisfied, you're not hungry. If you don't eat, you are hungry. So you don't need to have ishtadlus. Do I need to eat? Do I not need to eat? Whatever it is. No, Hashem tells you when you're hungry, you eat. Otherwise, you won't be. You won't be full. And it's a very clear way of the world working. There's no, Hashem put it in a way that's no question about it. When you're thirsty, you drink. Water, by the way, to avoid confusion. When you're hungry, you eat. You need to. Otherwise, you will be hungry. You will be thirsty. So if somebody does the ishtadlus, there's no question about him. Why is he doing his ishtadlus? He's obligated to. So what was the time about the doctors relying on what the doctor said? We need to rely on what the doctor said. So Hassan Sefer, he says that when we come to doctors, we rely on them, but we know that there's no way it's going to work 100% because of what the doctor said. Now I'll explain. What does it mean? No way it's going to work because of what the doctor said. We could see it clearly today. We live in a generation that we're all becoming doctors, right? For the past 9 months, we all know about viruses, about pandemics, about how to do, and are masks good or not good, or what social distancing, not social distancing, our economy, or health, or whatever. We all know everything. We know everything, right? And if we look into that, we see big contradictions between doctors. One doctor will say, if you do this, that will be the best. But this will be horrific. And the other doctor will tell you, no, the other way around. If you do this, that will be horrific. It will be great. But the other way will be horrific. Every doctor has his view. It's not like we could look around the world and say, all the doctors in the world, it is clear to them. Why? Because doctors are practicing medicine, as they said. My grandfather used to say, they're practicing medicine. They're practicing. There's a reason it's called practicing. But anyways, we see even today, the doctors say, we're treating COVID about how we know, but it's a new disease. We don't know yet. So here, we have to go with what the doctor said because of ishtadlus. We do. We're obligated to do that. But it's a much stronger clarity that we could only rely on Hashem for our health. Because in medicine, it doesn't work like food and drinks, that if you eat, you're not hungry. If you drink, you're not thirsty. So if you take medicine, you're 100% cured. If you once wanna scare yourself a little bit, I don't know, maybe in the Erev Yom Kippur or so, you could read all the warnings on the box of the medicines, and you'll see that it's not so simple that by taking a medicine, it's the exact way to go for it. Bread doesn't come with a list of warnings of side effects, although sometimes I think it should, but it doesn't. And it's clear. Medicine does, which means that when somebody takes medicine, that's what we do. When somebody takes medicine, there's a nusach we say even from the Rambam that we daven to Hashem yehi esek ze li lerefuah. We daven that when we take this medicine, what I'm doing now should be a refuah for me. Why? Because it's 100% in Hashem's hands. Because the medicine is b'derech hateva, it works to a certain percent. We need to be from the percent that it works. And only Hashem can do that. Only Hashem could make that happen. So there's a very fine difference between when we talk about our physical needs that work, that if you're cold and you wear a jacket, you're warm, and because that's how Hashem created the world. There's no, our jacket works 95%. Doesn't work that way. And this company works 90 and 93 and 89, or this jacket was tried in this amount of people, and this jacket was tried. No, because a jacket warms you up. And it's not about maybe. So then you could say, Hashem gave me the ishtadlus to keep myself warm and healthy, so I need to wear a jacket. And that's why I'm wearing a jacket. And I will be warm. There's no question. But if we look into the concept of the refuah, that there's medicine, then we know, no, what Hashem did is Hashem gave me the ishtadlus. Hashem tells me you gotta go to the doctor. You must follow the orders, but you still know that you're 100% in Hashem's hands. So that we need to know, and I think it's a very important concept, especially now that unfortunately, it looks like we're going into another period of Nisayon, and we're reaching another period that Hashem is giving us another opportunity to feel close and rely only on Him. Sometimes we can forget how much we need to rely on Hashem. So if we look at the numbers of people that are positive, then it looks like we're getting another opportunity to get close to Hashem and to have our Habitachon stronger. So we need to remember, yes, we need to follow the orders. Yes, we need to do it, but we need to know that we will be protected based on the decision and based on what Hashem does. And Hashem didn't even put it into nature. Okay. So that's the first paragraph. When we said there's different concepts of ishtadlus, so the first one is, as we said, looking after your physical needs. If it's clothes, money, eating, refuah, slightly differences as we saw, but that's the concept. We don't even know, we know what we need to do, which is ishtadlus. We don't know if it's going to work. If it's not going to work, we trust Hashem. Now, there's another part. There's a whole nother concept of parnasa that we are obligated to do, which we do, but it's a completely different concept. Why? Everything we were talking until now, was our parnasa and our finances for our personal needs. What I mean personal needs, for you to eat, for you to drink, for you to have what to wear, etc. Now, we're going to start talking about the whole concept of things we have that are not necessarily things that are for us per se. Why? We know that a lot of our money, and I see today we have a special guest in the Shaar, big schus, and Rabbi, he knows how to deal money better than me, an accountant. But we know that when a person is doing money, there's money you need for yourself, and there's money you need in order to make your business work. So you have money that you need you want to sell stuff in your business, you need to invest. You need money for investment. right? You want to manage you want to be a builder, so you need to buy tools. There's a lot of money that a person needs that is not directly for his parnasa. It's not directly for his own personal needs. It's money that he needs in order to make money. It's money that he needs in order to function with his assets, for his house, for his car, as we said, taxes and more taxes and more taxes and more taxes, right? But there's minui and there's all kinds of things that a person needs to do. Okay, now there's another part. There's that's one area that a person needs to look after and he needs to make parnasa. There's another part that a person needs to get a job in order to do parnasa. However, we all know that there are certain jobs that will give you more financial stability than other stuff. If a person works, let's say for the government, he'll have a certain amount of salary, which would probably give him a more comfortable life. If a person works as a gardener in homes, not necessarily that he has maybe his basic needs, but he doesn't have big benefits. So there's a concept of even within your talent, and I'm not looking now at what every person's talent is, because that we said, Kodesh Baruch Hu gives you the power to understand what you connect to, what you have, what you're able to. But within, you could be a supervisor in a business that has 3 clients in a certain city that the rates there are minimum wage. And you could be for the government that you'll get millions. Same talent, same ability, but Hashem puts you in a different position. So a person could do the same work for a different boss and make more money. You could do a different responsibility for a different place and get a different outcome. That could be for the benefit. It also could be for the worse. Sometimes a person has his parnasa that he has to travel for it a lot. He has to travel makom sakana. He has to travel. He has to fly to dangerous places. He has to drive to dangerous places. He has to be on the road. He has to manage. He has to get around. There's a big concept of what your job is going to be. That's another part. However, these two parts lead into interesting concepts. Now we're going to look at hishtalus for parnasa when it's not for your parnasa. Baruch Hashem, there are many people that Hashem gave them and He blessed them with finances that it's not only for their parnasa, that they're able to have extra million or two or three or five. They're able to live a luxury life that is more than what they would need, even if we talk in our standards, more than what they would need. So now here it's an interesting concept. Here comes the Chovos Halevavos and he says that's something that we don't do ishtadlus for. What does it mean we don't do ishtadlus for? We have an obligation to work. We have an obligation to make sure that we make money. We're able to support ourselves financially. However, our needs, Hashem will cover. A person does his ishtadlus, and at the end of the day, and we spoke about it in our Shaar quite a few times. If we look today, COVID times, Baruch Hashem, the Jewish community or the community here, we can say, is probably the only community in South Africa, regardless of where you live, race, gender, that everybody, unless there's a certain specific issue, but everybody is living in a house and everybody is eating basic food. Yes, people are under tremendous financial stress. People are in debt. People are having a hard time. People are not managing. But Baruch Hashem, the basic need to see that a person has a piece of bread in the morning, I'm not talking about milk and extra and butter and whatever, piece of bread Hashem is sending. Baruch Hashem, we don't see, when we drive around here, when we go around here, we don't see people sleeping in the streets that are under the supervision of Hashem. When we don't see out of our community people there. And again, I'm not going into reasons and community services and the chesed that everybody's doing to support each other. but in concept, right? With Baruch Hashem, we have that. Now, when it comes to more than that, and without going at this point into the share of what does it mean more than that, I know that somebody I know came once to the Beis Yisrael, and he told him that he's not managing financially and he wants to take a loan. And the Beis Yisrael, for his Hasidim, for the Ger Hasidim, he was very, very strict about not borrowing money. So he told him, well, what do you need a loan for? He says, I'm not coping. He says, what do you mean not coping? He says, I can't manage with anything. So the Rebbe pulled out, I think at the time it was 20 shekel, and he said, here, take. He said, no, that's not the amount of money I'm looking. So he said, then you're asking me for a loan. You want to take a loan to buy a new couch, or you want to take a loan to buy a new car. That is not necessarily the basic parnasa that we're talking about. If a person needs to take a loan for eating, that's one thing. But if a person needs to take a loan because he wants a newer car or a newer couch, that's a different concept. And the reason, not necessarily that everybody will agree with the way the Beis Yisrael was teaching his Hasidim, but to get the concept, we have to understand that there's a level of parnasa that is not connected directly to what we do at work. It's not connected directly to the hishtadlus that a person does. And why do I say it's not connected directly? Because we see certain people do the same job as other people, and when one person doing the same job is coping, the other person is doing extremely well and managing financially extremely well, which means that there are different levels and different ways of money that a person can get, parnasa a person can get. And that is 100% a gift from Hashem. And if a person gets a gzera to get more money from Hashem, then he will. That a person can daven to Hashem, can try his best, can connect, but a person won't get more than what his gzera is from Shammai. So therefore, if a person does his ishtadlus and he does everything he needs in order to manage financially, he does what he needs to cope financially, he'll get what he needs. But when we're talking about much bigger numbers, that is already the siyata dishmaya. That's already a gift from Hashem. And when a person knows that, then a person is able to focus on his work properly, and then have menuchas nefesh, and then calm down, daven to Hashem, speak to Hashem, get the gzera, do his ishtadlus. I heard from one of our banim, I think he said it in the name of Reb Chaim Kanievsky, but that he said that his ishtadlus is in Rosh Hashanah. He puts tremendous ishtadlus in his finances on Rosh Hashanah, and that carries him for the year. Not that we're all there, or even close to there, but the concept of doing the parnasa, the concept of working, is obligated to one, to the ability to get what we need. Afterwards is a gift from Hashem. And if a person doesn't have that as a present from Hashem, it's not going to happen. Why? And here we need to see. And it's a very interesting concept, because when a person works and he gets a certain amount of finances that he needs for his basic needs, that's money that he will use. If a person needs a certain amount to eat, that's the money he'll get. After a certain amount of money that a person gets, and Chovos is going to go into it, many times he actually won't enjoy that money at all. Many times that money will go to taxes. That's money he'll leave after he passes on for the world for his yorshim. That's money that he will give out for tzedakah. That's money he will give to people. That's money that he'll use for different concepts, but not necessarily that money would stay his. Which means that if somebody would work and put in tremendous ishtadlus for parnasa of of luxuries, right? So if somebody looks into parnasa of luxuries and he's putting loads of ishtadlus, sorry, there may be a good chance that his ishtadlus is actually not for him. He's actually working to make money that he's not going to get and he's not going to achieve. He's not going to enjoy because it's over the basic that he needs. For instance, somebody that has $10 million in his account or somebody who has $100 million in his account, I'm assuming, I don't know them personally, but I'm assuming they eat the same breakfast. Just because he has another $90 million in his account doesn't make his breakfast bigger, right? So there's a certain amount of money that a person won't necessarily use for himself. So if you won't necessarily use for yourself, you may, but not necessarily that you will, then by nature, a person is putting in ishtadlus for somebody else. So for instance, there's an example, there's a situation. He says sometimes there could be a person that Hashem gives him quite a lot of extra money because Hashem is giving him a position in the world to be supporting other people. So some people are making their money by doing their ishtadlus, which is a very big blessing, as we've learned before. That we can, and we'll see it later on, that Hashem gives us two presents. One present is that He gives us our needs, and the other present is that we actually make our money by working, because it would be extremely frustrating to work and not make money and get your money from someplace else. So at least there's a good feeling with it, which is a separate present, as we've learned. So anyways, this person, Hashem gave him a position in the world that he will have a lot of money in order to support other people. By him thinking that it's my money, I'm working for it, I'm taking for my personal comfort time and making more money, doesn't make sense. This person says, I'm dedicating my life 24/7 to work, to make loads of money, to be rich. But then after a certain amount of money a person makes, he doesn't use it for himself. So how could it be that he's obligated to do ishtadlus if he's not going to be needing that money? Or on the other side, maybe he does his ishtadlus and Hashem showers him with money, and then he feels a nisayon and a challenge. It's hard for him to give out to people that need, because he feels like he worked so hard for his money. But he didn't, because this person, in the same position, let's say he's a doctor. Doctors that don't have such high-level positions as him, with the same talent, are making much less money. So the reason he's making so much more is because Hashem is giving him so much more. So if that's the case, then it's literally given to you. So if you're going to give it to somebody else by doing, obviously and responsibly, how we speak in the shiurim, that a person gives a certain amount and not more, and we're not going into the details of it. But if you're giving it on because that's what you're supposed to do, it's only a nisayon for a person to feel like, oh, how can I give the money I worked so hard for? And sometimes, says the Chovos, Hashem would give somebody the extra money because he feels because Hashem says that's part of his nisayon. This person has an obligation to work on his abilities to share what he has, to work on the ability to give out. I know once saw one of my little kids, one of my babies, taking chips from his brother without his brother seeing. So he snuck out of his packet. So I asked him, and I'm sure half the parents I know have had this experience once, at least, that you tell your child, "What are you doing?" And he says, "I'm sharing," right? So sometimes when we're young, we could think that sharing is also when we take. But anyways, when a person is getting a certain amount of money by bonus, then if it's supposed to be for him, Hashem will give him what he needs, even if he passes it on in a responsible way, according to halacha, according to the right way, then he will get still what he needs. But if a person feels like he needs to do ishtadlus for luxury, which doesn't make sense because he may not even use it, which we'll see in a moment. B, once he has that extra money, he feels like he needs to keep it. It's hard for him to give out. It's hard for him to share. Then he's just not getting the concept. He's making a mistake. It's not his ishtadlus, right? And that's what he says, that the person who doesn't realize that makes three big mistakes. Number one, if a person realizes that whatever he's gonna get from Hashem will be his, then he won't even have the challenge of taking money in a dishonest way. Why? Because once a person realizes that a person has to do ishtadlus, and until now we spoke about doing ishtadlus in an honest way, because if Hashem gives you all you need, and you're obligated to do ishtadlus, and doing something not honest is not your ishtadlus, because Hashem doesn't want you to do something not honest, then it's not your ishtadlus to not be honest. It doesn't even help financially. And it means that if it helped you get money in a dishonest way, you will, that means you would have gotten it anyways. And we can see, sometimes we see local people around us that are stealing phones, and they could steal 20, 30, 40 phones a day, and they're still poor. And you ask yourself, why? Because if that's not what Hashem provided for them, then it won't help that they stole. And if they did steal and they deserved it, they would have gotten it anyways. The same thing with luxury, that we said that it's a gift from Hashem. Anything that's not our basic needs is Hashem is giving us extra, more than we need. Then if you would just ask from Hashem, you will get it, because the only reason you were able to get it in a non-good way is because you were supposed to get it. If not, you wouldn't get it. So by doing anything dishonest in order to get money, by doing anything that wouldn't be the right, acceptable way that Hashem expects from us, is just silly, because then a person gets charged with dishonesty. He gets punished. He doesn't have bracha with it for something that he would have gotten anyways. It doesn't make sense. I actually just this week saw about one of the Rabbis. He wrote in a sefer that he heard about one of his Hasidim that was having a horrible time financially, and he went and he organized a certain amount of money, and he put it in his drawer to give it to that chassid of his. And that chassid once came to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe wasn't there, and he couldn't control himself, and he saw the money in the drawer, and he just stole it. And eventually, the Rebbe realized who stole it. And the Rebbe said, look at how shame it is for this person that he actually stole the money I was going to give him in a very friendly way, which means he deserved it. That's why he was able to steal it. But he could have gotten it in the best way, and without losing his dignity, without doing an avera, without doing the wrong thing. He could have enjoyed it. Instead, by him taking it in the wrong way, he got it, but in a horrible way, and he was stealing, which is horrible. Which means that when we get something, it's because Hashem decided we can get it. And the second reason that a person makes a mistake, that every money, and this is an interesting concept, every money Hashem gives us, he gives this to us for three different things, for one of three. One part of the reason we get parnasa is to look after our needs. A person needs to eat, Hashem gives him money and he can eat. A person needs to get dressed, Hashem gives him money for clothes or food, not necessarily that he gets the money for it. The second thing Hashem gives somebody, that a person is responsible, if either he's responsible by obligation or because he wants to support his wife, his kids, his servants, his workers, anybody around him, his community, right? I said some of them, like your wife, you're obligated. Further away, it's something you want to do. But a person is obligated to do this stuff, or at least needs to. Then HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives you also a certain amount for that. So a person gets a certain amount for that, that's the money that he can share for other people around him. So one part is for him, one part is for the people that is around him. Some of it is people around him that he's obligated to. Sometimes is even for kids that are older already, that person helps his older children, not obligated to, but he feels that he wants to, right? That's another part of money. And the third is that Hashem gives every person some money that he won't have any enjoyment of it. Hashem gives it to him because that's money that he's going to give for tzedakah. And if he doesn't, he'll lose it. Or if he doesn't, something will go wrong with it. Or if he doesn't, he'll need some plumbing and it will come and he'll need to fix it. Or if he doesn't, then he'll leave it in Yerusha for somebody. But there's a certain amount of money that a person that doesn't enjoy his own money, right? We know that Hashem, uh, um, any expense that Hashem gives us is because we were supposed to spend it, and Hashem gave us the money for it. So if a person gets a certain money, Hashem gives us a certain money to spend on fixing a broken toilet, for instance. We don't enjoy it necessarily, and if Hashem didn't give us the money, the toilet wouldn't break, in a way, right? So we see that there's certain money that a person gets and he won't enjoy. We'll lose it one day. We'll feel we'll sit in the plane and we'll see something in the catalog that we need to buy. I don't know, um, a crazy thing, a gadget. We'll buy it, we'll love it, and we'll never touch it once, or it will break when we try to put it together. Right? So Hashem gave us a certain amount of money that we won't enjoy. Every person has that. And if a person thinks that every part of his money is his hard-working money and his parnasa, and it's not, and the other categories as well, he's making a mistake. He doesn't realize that that's not the basic ishtadlus. The basic ishtadlus is, number one, is that's just for your needs. Anything that's for other people that you get, or that's going to go to waste, and there's a lot of money that's going to go to waste, except for by big tzaddikim. We know Yaakov Avinu, when he went back to get the pachim, as I'll say that tzaddikim amoinam chavivim yosel migufam, right? Which doesn't sound like a compliment in our day and age. But what does Rashi say? That's because he knows that every penny he gets from Hashem is for a certain use, for a mitzvah. So he wants to do it. And if he loses it, then he's upset because some mitzvahs were lost along the way. But we live in a way that we have money that we won't use and won't stay ours. So for a person to get frustrated about giving out that money, or feeling that it's his, and therefore he shouldn't be doing what Hashem expects of the right thing, or he's working more than what he's obligated on the expense of his personal growth or ruchnius growth or family, then he's not benefiting anything. It doesn't make sense. And the third thing is, which maybe we'll look into it a bit more, that sometimes Hashem gives somebody a present and he gives them extra money in order to give out tzedakah. And this person has a nisayon that he feels that if he would just not keep the money, he'd be so much richer, but because he gave tzedakah, he doesn't have. And by doing that in Mesiras Nefesh, he gets a tremendous schar from Hashem, which I think we'll go into deeper next week. Maybe we'll, maybe won't, but there's a lot to talk about it. I always say, if you look many times in Koil and you see that so many people sitting and learning Steigen that believe that if they would just go out to business, they'll be very rich, which in reality, we know that not everybody who goes to work becomes rich. So how does that work? They're clever people. And Hashem says, you know what? I'll give everyone that's sitting and learning the feeling that if he goes out to the business world, he'll be rich. And by staying and learning, he gets a tremendous schar, tremendous merit of so much effort of working, although he could be rich, but he's not, and he chose to learn. And that's a tremendous schar that a person can get. So there is this concept that Hashem gives us sometimes extra with the feeling that maybe if we wouldn't have given out to the mitzvahs or wouldn't use it for mitzvahs, we would have had so much more, which is not accurate, but it's the feeling so we could actually do the mitzvahs with a proper Mesiras Nefesh. I think we're going to end for today. I think we're getting up to the time. So yasher koach everybody for joining.